people have asked me that question before, whether leaders are born or whether they're made. I think it's a combination of the two. I think that oftentimes you find people whose circumstances, whatever they are, as they're raised and grown, they become leaders, but I think you have to have certain characteristics within yourself the entire time to be able to allow that leadership to come to the fore. So, to me, the ability to have an outgoing personality is important for a leader. I think that you have to be willing to take risks as a leader, and you can learn how to do a lot of this stuff, but part of it is how comfortable you feel with being that person.
But every once in a while, a great leader will come along. And for example, many of you know Jordan Larson, who just played in the Olympics. She was a great leader. She didn't know when she first came to Nebraska, but by her senior year, she was a great leader. And why was she a great leader? When I look back, I think because, again, her mom coached her and I talked about that with you guys, and her mom was a very strong influence in her life, and I just think she, like Clay said, she had the confidence to make decisions, to stand up, to have the backbone we talked about, and she really didn't care what, a lot of girls are worried about what they'll think of each other if they, say something or do something, and she didn't care about that. Her goal was all about the team. And so those are the ones that come along every so often that are great. Otherwise, we're trying to develop leaders, but it's a big challenge.
I think my father was the first person that I looked to as a leader. Now, he had his problems and his difficulties in life, but the things that I learned from him were that he always stood for others. He was oftentimes doing things for others when perhaps some might have thought he could have been doing things for us or for himself. And I learned from his example that you don't have to be the most dominating person in the room to exude qualities of leadership. There's a quiet way to lead that you can do an almost unobtrusive way, right? But you knew that people were willing to listen to what he had to say and were willing to take the words that he said and to think about them and perhaps apply them in a way they hadn't thought of before. So I guess he would be one of those. I'm a big Ronald Reagan guy. I think he was a wonderful leader. I think I was attracted to his leadership several different ways, right? He had the gift of oratory. He was also a charismatic guy in terms of, coming from Hollywood and that sort of thing, but I also thought that he was a pretty effective presidential leader in the way that he could deliver what America truly, at least in my time frame, I think stands for. So those are probably the two that I would cite, but I would always look at Coach Osborne, right? As a young kid growing up in Nebraska, man, there was no one better.
My number one guy is Coach Osborne, and I talked about, he's been my leader for the last 4 years. So he's where it starts for me. I think, again, as I told you, I study other teams and other coaches, and I think Rex Burkhead is a tremendous leader, and I probably see him every day and have a conversation with him every day. It's not about leadership, but just an interaction. And he's somebody, I told my wife this the other day, of all the football guys that have come through there, again, football and volleyball, we mirror each other's seasons. So we're always in the weight room together, we're always down the Hawks together, we're always eating together. So there's a lot of interaction going on. And I told my wife, I said, he's the first guy I want to ask him if someday, when he's playing in the NFL, if he would give me a ticket so I could come watch him play. That's one guy I would love to go see play. So those are two people right now that really pop into my mind that I really have observed. But I'm always watching. I'm always looking for leadership. I think for me, it's just it's the trust myself, trust my instincts, my gut feeling. Trust my wisdom. And that's why I told you. The longer I coach, the less I know, because I think I'm just so more open to learning more and more about leadership and coaching and things like that. So accumulate a lot, trust it. And with Coach Osborne, this a typical meeting with him. So what do you think? What's your gut telling you? I've had that several times from him, dealing with leadership type issues and things like that.
That's a really hard question, I guess. My father told me once not to just take up space in school. So I just wasted that one, didn't I? I guess, I don't know if anyone, my parents were really strong influences in my life, especially my mom. And, Alice was a piece of work in and of her own right, but she always, the thing she told me, and I don't know if she meant it as a piece of advice, right? But it's one of the things that stuck with me, and she used to tell me, you can do anything you want to do. I wanted to go to UCLA and play basketball for John Wooden when I was a high school senior. And so I sent my ACT scores off to UCLA, and they didn't even respond. And my scores were pretty good, but they didn't even respond to me. But we used to talk about, well, what if I get accepted to go play basketball at UCLA? It's going to cost a lot of money. Yeah, it's okay, we'll find a way. But she would always let me know that you can be anything that you wanted to be. And so that's one of the things I try to speak to both kids and adults, but mostly kids, right? It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter how big or small your town is. It doesn't matter whether you play Class A football or Class 6-man football. None of that matters, right? But you can do anything you want to do if you apply yourself and you work hard. So I think that's probably the best piece of advice, whether it came to me as advice or not. That's what I take